Tom Bennett, a 47-year-old man, wakes up early on his farm in Sunnyside, Kansas. He has never been one to care much about what others thought of his appearance or possessions. For him, what mattered was hard work, the land, and family. But today, he was preparing for something different. He had decided to visit Kansas City, a big city, to buy a special gift for his daughter Emily, who was about to turn 16. His old truck creaked along the road as he headed toward the Galleria Mall. He thought about Emily's words, how she always talked about wanting a modern cell phone, one of the latest from TechSphere, the renowned electronics store he had seen during a recent trip to the city. Tom was never a fan of technology, but he wanted to make his daughter happy. He knew how much she dreamed of having something sophisticated, so he thought it would be a nice surprise for her birthday. The Galleria Mall was a luxurious place, with its immaculate storefronts and elegantly dressed customers. Tom immediately felt the contrast between his simple appearance and the surroundings. He wore a flannel shirt, worn jeans, and weathered leather boots. As he got out of the truck, he felt the weight of the social difference, but he didn't let it affect him. He had faced much bigger struggles in life, and this wouldn't be any different. As he entered the mall, he was immediately noticed. The people, more concerned with their own lives, didn't pay much attention, but Tom could feel the eyes on him, assessing him. He walked through the corridors, trying to ignore the discomfort, until he finally reached the entrance to TechSphere. He looked at the store windows, with state-of-the-art displays and products that seemed to shine under the flawless lights. For a moment, he felt like a fish out of water, but he reminded himself that he was there for Emily, and that gave him strength. Upon entering the store, Tom was immediately approached by Kyle Summers, a young attendant. Kyle, in his perfectly tailored suit and attentive gaze, looked at Tom with an expression of curiosity, but also judgment. He didn't need much to realize that Tom wasn't the typical customer for TechSphere. The farmer seemed to have little understanding of what he was seeing. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you?" Kyle said, with a smile that seemed more like an attempt to be polite than genuine. Tom, feeling a little out of place, responded with the simplicity he was known for. "I'm looking for a cell phone, something for my daughter. Her birthday is tomorrow." Kyle looked at him, evaluating, as if deciding whether or not to spend much time on this customer. He answered without leaving his superior stance, "Well, we have an amazing selection of iPhones, but I believe you're looking for something simpler. Let me show you some options." Kyle's tone was cold, and Tom immediately realized that the attendant had made a wrong assumption. He never liked this kind of judgment, but he kept his composure. "I know what I'm looking for," Tom replied, trying to keep his calm. "I know what she wants." Kyle looked at him with skepticism, but stepped away for a moment. Meanwhile, Tom started looking at the phones on the shelves. He didn't know much about brands and models, but he felt that he was being treated differently because of his appearance. It was as if the entire store was silently telling him that he didn't belong there. Meanwhile, Kyle began to walk away, probably in search of more suitable customers to sell the expensive models. The environment felt too sophisticated for Tom, who began to feel an increasing discomfort. He knew what he wanted, but it seemed like no one there was willing to give him attention or respect his choices. Humiliation was starting to set in, but Tom decided to press on. He had faced much worse in life and wasn't going to let a simple salesperson shake his confidence. Tom approached one of the demonstration tables, where a simpler phone model was on display. As he examined it, he was interrupted by Kyle, who came over with a somewhat sarcastic smile and said, "I think this one might be more suitable for you. It's not as expensive as the others, but at least it won't make you lose control. What do you think?" Tom didn't respond immediately. He felt the humiliation and the urge to leave, but something inside him told him not to give up. He was there for Emily, and that gave him the strength to endure the treatment he was receiving. So, taking a deep breath, he looked at Kyle and said, "I know what she wants, and I'll take what I choose." "It doesn't matter what you think." Tom felt the weight of Kyle's words still echoing in his mind. He had been clearly disregarded, as if being a simple man from the countryside was a reason to be treated with contempt. But Tom wasn't someone easily knocked down. He had dealt with life's hardships and knew his dignity wasn't for sale. He looked at the phone model in his hands, the most basic and cheapest in the store. Despite the humiliation he felt, he still thought about Emily and the smile she would have when she received the gift. That was what mattered, not the opinions of a superficial salesperson. Tom looked around the store. Everything seemed perfect. The display shone with the latest technological releases, and the customers around him moved with a grace that Tom would never understand. The environment, so neat and modern, contrasted with his rustic appearance. He felt a tightness in his chest, as if he were a lost child in a big city. He didn't want to seem awkward, but with every movement, it felt like he was becoming an easy target for the judgment of the people around him. Kyle was back, ready to make another attempt to steer Tom toward the cheaper models. But Tom didn't give in. "I'll take this one," Tom said, pointing to the more advanced model, the latest iPhone, which he knew his daughter would love. "Emily deserves the best, and I know what she wants." "It doesn't matter what you think." Kyle paused. He looked at the phone, then at Tom, as if it was hard to believe someone like him could afford that model. Tom saw the doubt on his face and, for a moment, felt a wave of frustration. He was tired of being underestimated. "Well," Kyle said, trying to hide his discomfort, "if you're really sure you want this model, I'll call the manager to finalize the purchase." "I think it would be better that way." Tom didn't say anything else. He simply nodded and waited, feeling the weight of the environment around him. Kyle stepped away, but before disappearing, he cast a critical look at Tom. Tom stayed there, immersed in his thoughts, reflecting on how society seemed to divide people based on appearance and money. He didn't need anyone else to validate who he was. He knew what he had achieved, and none of it had to do with what was in that store. The store manager, Ethan Green, approached shortly after. He was a tall man, with a perfectly tailored suit, carefully styled hair, and a friendly smile. But there was something in the way he looked at Tom that suggested he, too, thought that this customer shouldn't be there. "Good afternoon, sir," said Ethan, with a cordial smile. "Can I help you complete your purchase?" Tom felt the tension rise. Although the manager was more polite than Kyle, he could perceive the judgment in his eyes. It was as if he were a shadow in the perfect world of tech sphere. A man from the country trying to fit into something that clearly wasn't meant for him. "Yes, I'll take the iPhone X. The most expensive one, please," Tom replied firmly. He didn't want to apologize for his choices anymore. Emily deserved the best, and he didn't have to explain his decisions to anyone. Ethan looked at the phone and, without hesitation, gestured to an attendant in the back, asking them to bring the model. "Great! Just a moment, sir. I'll process the purchase for you." As Ethan walked away, Tom looked around once more. He noticed the other customers in the store, dressed in designer clothes and carrying shopping bags. He didn't feel comfortable there, but he was determined to move forward. The anxiety he felt was a mix of shame and frustration. He knew he didn't fit in this world, but he also knew that he didn't need it to be somebody. The store felt imposing, but he didn't care. He wasn't there to be judged. He was there to make his daughter happy. And that was enough. However, the environment began to feel even more uncomfortable. While waiting, Tom overheard some low laughs among the other salespeople and customers. He felt like, once again, he was the target of jokes and glances. It was as if the store had become a stage where he was the main character in a play he hadn't chosen to perform. And then, something happened. A person entered the store. Jonathan Wells, the owner of the TechSphere chain, appeared at the door of the store, smiling and greeting the customers around him. He was a 50-year-old man, well-dressed, with an aura of confidence. Tom recognized Jonathan immediately. Jonathan walked up to Ethan, and the two exchanged a few words. Tom couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw Jonathan's smile fade slightly as he noticed Tom's presence. Jonathan Wells, the owner of TechSphere, walked through the store with the same charm and confidence that any businessman of his stature exuded, greeting customers and maintaining a flawless posture. When his eyes met Tom's, there was a brief moment of recognition, as if he realized that this man didn't fit the typical profile of the store's buyers. However, Jonathan, unlike Kyle and Ethan, didn't seem willing to judge. He approached Tom with a friendly smile, taking his time, as if he were there to ensure everyone felt welcome. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I assist you with anything?" Jonathan said, his voice soft and welcoming. Tom, though still a bit uncomfortable, felt relieved by the more genuine approach. He lifted his gaze to the man before him, feeling a little more respected. "I'm buying a phone for my daughter. She's turning 16 tomorrow," Tom replied, trying to stay calm. "I want something nice for her." Jonathan watched Tom for a moment. It didn't seem like a judgmental look, but more like a calm evaluation, almost as if he were trying to understand the situation. He looked at the model Tom had chosen, the iPhone X, then at Ethan, who was still in the background, visibly nervous. "Excellent choice. The iPhone X is a great model, and I'm sure your daughter will love it. How about we have a quick chat about other products she might like? We have some special offers for special customers today, Jonathan said with an engaging smile. Tom, though touched by the man's kindness, hesitated. He wasn't there to spend more than necessary. The simple idea of being treated with respect was something new to him in this store, and he didn't want to take advantage of it. No, I think that will be enough. I just want the best for her. Jonathan noticed Tom's discomfort, and with a subtle change in expression, he took a step closer, almost as if trying to create a safe space for the conversation. I completely understand, sir. However, I feel like you have something else on your mind. I like to know what my customers truly need. You're not telling me everything. Tom was a bit surprised by Jonathan's perception. He had tried to hide his feelings, but the store owner seemed to have noticed his hesitation. Suddenly, he felt as though he were no longer just a simple farmer, but someone who deserved to be heard. He relaxed a little more. I've never been much into technology, Tom started, his voice hesitant. But I wanted to do something nice for my daughter. I'm not rich, and people, well, they think people like me shouldn't be in stores like this, you know? I feel like I shouldn't be here. Jonathan stood silent for a moment, watching Tom with more empathy than the farmer had expected. He then smiled, a genuine smile, and placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. You're absolutely right to feel that way. But you know what? TechSphere isn't just for the rich or the young. It's for anyone who knows what they want and values the good things in life. What matters here is the choice you make, and you've made a good choice for your daughter. Don't let the others intimidate you. This place, this product, is as much yours as it is anyone else's. Tom was surprised by Jonathan's words. He hadn't expected to find someone so understanding in this environment. But here was the store owner, treating him with the same dignity he would offer any other customer. The feeling of humiliation he had experienced earlier began to slowly dissipate. As Jonathan made arrangements to finalize the purchase, Kyle and Ethan exchanged uncomfortable glances in the background, still unsure how to react to the owner's interaction with Tom. It was clear that the farmer wasn't the typical customer, and they still wondered if he could afford the purchase. I'll take care of this for you. Don't worry about anything else, Mr. Bennett. As I said, TechSphere is here to serve everyone, and your daughter will love this gift, Jonathan said, taking the lead on the sale. Tom, touched by the kindness, simply nodded, smiling with gratitude. He didn't want to feel like an outsider anymore. Jonathan had been the first person to treat him with respect, and that made all the difference. He no longer felt the shame that had plagued him before, and the simple act of buying that gift became something more meaningful. It was more about being recognized as a man with dignity than the value of the phone. As Jonathan stepped away to process the purchase, Tom looked around the store one more time, this time with a different feeling. He was no longer just a farmer lost in a big city. He was there as a customer, just like anyone else. And for the first time, he felt like he had the right to occupy that space. Tom watched Jonathan walk away with the same calm demeanor, leaving him there for a moment, alone but with a feeling of lightness. The tension that had once overwhelmed him began to dissipate. Instead of just being an out-of-place man in a luxury store, Tom felt like he might have something more to offer. That simple, genuine respect from Jonathan made all the difference. He was beginning to realize that maybe he didn't need to be like everyone expected, and that the store wasn't a place reserved for the rich or those who were always impeccably dressed. Kyle and Ethan, who had previously looked at Tom with some distrust, now seemed to distance themselves, as if they were embarrassed by the attention Jonathan was giving him. It was as if, suddenly, Tom had become an important customer in the eyes of the store owner. They couldn't help but wonder what was going on. But the truth was, they knew nothing about who this man really was. Tom now felt in control of the situation. He didn't need anything more than his own character to know that he deserved what he wanted. And for a moment, he thought of everything he had faced in his life, all the hardships on the farm, all the times he had been disregarded but always managed to rise above. He had worked hard, and now, maybe for the first time in a long time, he felt that effort was being recognized, in a quiet and simple way. The phone was wrapped up, and Jonathan returned with a smile on his face. He handed the iPhone X over with a courteous gesture. Here you go, Mr. Bennett. I'm sure your daughter will love it, and if you need anything else, I'm at your service. Tom took the box with firm hands, now feeling the weight of it in a different way. He wasn't just buying a gift. He was, in some way, reclaiming his own dignity. Jonathan's gesture, so simple and unpretentious, was more valuable to him than any purchase itself. "Thank you, Jonathan," Tom said, smiling back. "Thank you for treating me with respect." Jonathan, upon hearing that, smiled even more broadly. "You're welcome. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, and it's not just what we have to offer that counts, but also how we treat one another. You're doing what's right for your daughter, and that's what matters." Tom felt a wave of gratitude. He had arrived there feeling small, out of place, unsure how the people around him would view him. And now, he was leaving the store with a sense of victory. It wasn't a victory of money or material possessions, but the victory of empathy, respect, and self-confidence. Before heading out, Tom took one last look at the salespeople, now quieter, almost unsettled by Jonathan's interaction with him. The contrast between their behavior and Jonathan's couldn't have been more apparent. Kyle was still exchanging nervous glances with Ethan, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. As Tom walked toward the door, he turned one last time to see Jonathan, now speaking with another customer with the same warmth, as if nothing had happened. The contrast between how he had been treated and what Tom had faced earlier was unmistakable. Jonathan had not only treated him as an equal, but he had given him a confidence he never imagined he could gain in a place like that. Tom took a deep breath as he exited the store. He felt lighter now, with the gift in his hand and a sense of peace in his heart. He knew Emily would love the gift, but more importantly, he knew he had reaffirmed something much bigger for himself, the notion that his worth wasn't tied to what others thought of him. His dignity couldn't be bought with money, and in that moment, he realized that. As he left Tech Sphere, Tom felt the weight of the world lift off his shoulders. He looked up at the sky, and with a shy smile, made a promise to himself nothing and no one would ever make him feel less than he was. He didn't need anyone's approval. He was already enough. Tom took a deep breath as he walked out of Tech Sphere, the sound of the glass door closing softly behind him, a quiet whisper in the busy city atmosphere. He was holding his daughter's gift, but the feeling of accomplishment was far greater than the simple act of making a purchase. Deep down, Tom knew that this wasn't just about an iPhone. It was about being treated with humanity, without judgment. He no longer carried the humiliation from before, but rather, a new understanding of himself and the world around him. He walked through the bustling streets, the warmth from the sidewalk contrasting with the coolness of the morning air. The sounds of cars and conversations around him made him feel even more distant from his farm, but at the same time, he felt stronger. He was in a completely unfamiliar environment, and yet, he now saw himself with a kind of control over his own image. However, before he could move further away from the store, Tom heard a sound coming from the glass doors of Tech Sphere. It was the sound of a conversation, and soon the noise grew louder. He didn't know exactly what was going on, but he recognized Kyle's voice, the salesman who had treated him with disdain moments before. Kyle's voice was now a little more nervous. "I don't understand, Ethan. Why did the owner do that?" He wasn't uncomfortable at all. "And what do you think about all this?" Tom turned discreetly to observe, not wanting to be seen. What he heard next made his heart race. Jonathan, the store owner, was speaking, and his voice was firm, almost pedagogical. "I know your behavior was inappropriate. This is not just any store. What we want to offer our customers is more than just quality products. What I expect from each of you is to treat every customer, regardless of their appearance or social class, with the same respect you would want to receive. You know, Kyle, Ethan, I saw a man who came in here, not with the look of a wealthy buyer, but as someone who wants to do something good for his daughter, and even though you didn't recognize that at first, he deserves to be treated with the same dignity as any other customer." Tom stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, trying to process what he had just heard. Jonathan, the store owner, was clearly calling his employees' attention to the inappropriate way they had treated him. The feeling of humiliation he had felt when entering the store now seemed to be overshadowed by something stronger, the feeling that his dignity was truly being restored. He stood there for a moment, watching through the store window. Kyle and Ethan were visibly embarrassed. Ethan's look seemed a little more remorseful, while Kyle still appeared impatient, as if he didn't quite understand why he was being reprimanded. Jonathan, however, remained calm, with a smile that suggested he knew exactly what he was doing, correcting a mistake, but in a constructive way. Before leaving, Tom felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him wanted to leave and put that store behind him, but another part wanted to see how far this could go. He was no longer the farmer who wandered aimlessly through the big stores. He had been heard, and although everything still seemed surreal, In some way, he was leaving his mark on that place. Tom looked at the box in his hands and smiled. He knew that by giving the present to his daughter, he would be showing more than just a simple cell phone. He would be passing on something much more valuable to her, the understanding that anyone, regardless of their background, had the right to be treated with respect and dignity. As he walked to the car, Tom found himself thinking about the life he was leaving behind. The farm seemed so distant now, as if he were leaving a place where the struggle for recognition was constant. He wanted his daughter to see more of the world than he had. For her to understand that one day, she could be more than someone from the countryside, more than someone marginalized. I'll make sure she understands that, he thought, with steady eyes. I'll give her everything I never had. As he drove back home, Tom reflected on Jonathan's words. Maybe that's what he needed. To be heard, perhaps, with a little confidence and the support of someone, he could challenge what the world thought of him. The future was still in his hands, and with the present for his daughter, he had another chance to make a difference. Tom drove along the road, the city lights slowly fading as he moved further from Texfair. The soft sound of his car's engine filled the silence, but inside, he was full of thoughts. He couldn't stop thinking about the way Jonathan had treated him and how it had suddenly changed the way he saw himself. Before entering that store, he had been just fulfilling a simple task, buying a gift for his daughter. Now, he felt like he had been part of something much bigger. The road was quiet, and for a moment, he allowed himself to relax. He looked at the present still in his hands, and the smile that formed on his face was genuine. Emily would be happy, he knew that. She had always liked technology, and he knew she would use and value the gift. But there was something more at stake here, something that wasn't just about a birthday gift. He began to think about the salesman, the way Kyle and Ethan had looked at him, the evident contempt, which wasn't just about him being a simple farmer, but something much deeper. Perhaps it was their perception of people like him. Who they were, what they represented, how much they mattered. Tom wasn't blind. He knew what people thought. He knew what many saw when they looked at him, the farm man, dirty from work, with calloused hands, a man who would never belong to those circles. And yet, there he was, leaving the store with an iPhone X in his hands. Treated with dignity and respect. Jonathan had acted as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Perhaps, Tom thought, that's what he needed, to be treated with respect and understanding. The simple act of Jonathan recognizing him as someone worthy of attention had touched something inside him. That thought brought him back to reality. He wasn't just reflecting on the experience anymore. He was feeling different. Confidence was growing within him. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Not to the salesman, not to the town, and most of all, not to himself. But for some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about how things would be different if more people like Jonathan existed. When Tom arrived home, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and pink. He parked the car in the garage and entered the house. Emily was in the kitchen, as always, preparing something simple but delicious. She looked up at him and smiled. "How was your day? Did you get what you wanted?" Tom smiled back, feeling lighter, more confident. "Yes, I did. And I brought something for you." He placed the iPhone on the table, the box still untouched. Emily looked surprised, her eyes widening as she picked up the gift. "You didn't need to get me so much, Tom," she said, with an awkward smile. "I know, but I thought you deserved it." That simple smile, the touch of his hands, meant more than any material prize. It was as if Tom had found, in that gift, a way to give back to her what she had always given him: unconditional support, trust, and affection. She opened the box carefully, and when she saw the iPhone, her expression was one of surprise. "You really bought this? I didn't expect." Tom sat at the table, watching her with a calm smile. "I know, but sometimes, you need to do something different, right? To show you care." At that moment, Emily looked at him in a different way. She didn't fully understand what had motivated him to do that, but she could see the light in Tom's eyes. Something had changed in him, and although she didn't know the details, she could feel that this act had been a turning point for him. After dinner, while they talked about the little things, Tom couldn't help but wonder what his future would be. He knew he couldn't live for the expectations of others, and now he felt he had the tools to act according to his own beliefs. He didn't need approval. He was already doing what he thought was right, and by doing so, he was, in a way, changing the perception of the people around him, even without realizing it. But he also knew this wasn't the end of his journey. He had taken an important step, but the lessons of respect and dignity needed to be carried forward. He had to go back to his farm and apply this new understanding, something he still needed to learn to build with others around him, in the community. The experience at the tech store wouldn't be forgotten. But the biggest challenge was ahead. How would he deal with the people who still saw him only as the same old farmer? The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: Tom no longer saw himself as a man without value. He was more than that. He was ready to make a difference. That night, while the house was wrapped in the quiet sound of a TV playing in the background, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee spread through the air, Tom lost himself in his thoughts. He sat in the kitchen chair, still with the iPhone on the table in front of him, the box now empty. He looked at his wife, Emily, who was organizing a few things on the counter, and found himself wondering how all of this could change for them. But the change wouldn't be instant. Tom knew he needed more than just a simple gesture to transform how people saw him. For years, he had been the simple farm man, someone whose hands worked tirelessly to take care of the land and family. His life had revolved around the fields, and he thought that role was the only one the world saw in him. The feeling of invisibility, of being seen as just another farmer, had always bothered him, but he never knew how to deal with it. The humiliation at TechSphere had been a reflection of that, a shock to his self-perception. But, in that moment, he didn't feel small anymore. He felt strong. Jonathan's gesture of offering him respect, treating him not just as any customer, was beginning to have a greater resonance than he had imagined. He realized that he himself had to change the way he saw himself. How could he expect others to respect him if he didn't believe in his own worth? How could he teach his daughter to be someone who would never give up if he didn't believe he deserved a chance? I need to show her, Tom thought. I need to show my daughter what it means to be worthy. Not because of money or status, but by the way we treat others and how we treat ourselves. I need to be an example for her. However, doubt still lingered over him. Tom knew that when he returned to the farm the next day, he would face the old challenge: the way people still saw him. The society around him was small, with narrow-minded people who often underestimated his ability simply because of his hard work in the fields. In many casual conversations, he had already overheard comments about farmers being rustic or unrefined. Those words hurt him. But he also knew they were reflections of a prejudice he could never directly control. What he could control, however, was how he reacted to these judgments. The next morning, after breakfast, while Emily was busy with work preparations, Tom got up and went to the porch, where he looked out at the vast lands around them. The trees swayed gently in the wind, and the smell of fresh earth filled his lungs. He had a responsibility, a mission. He could no longer be the man who hid behind excessive humility. The respect and value he was beginning to understand were things he should share, not only with his daughter, but also with the people around him. As he walked toward the barn, Tom thought about how he could start acting differently, more assertively. Maybe he needed to talk to his neighbors, to other farmers, without worrying if they judged him. He knew it would be difficult, but it was a necessary step. He could no longer hide in the shadows of social invisibility. Suddenly, an idea came to mind. What if he invited Jonathan to visit the farm? It would be a grand gesture, a way to show the store owner that he was more than just a customer. Perhaps this could be a way to reciprocate the respect he had received. And who knows, maybe in the future, this could inspire more people to think differently. Tom knew it wouldn't be easy to change the concept everyone had of him, but something inside him told him that this was the right direction to follow. Back at the house, he found Emily already preparing things for the day. He knew she wouldn't fully understand what he was thinking, but he felt the need to speak. "I'm going to invite Jonathan to come here. I think he needs to see the farm, see my work." Emily looked at him, surprised. "Jonathan, the store owner?" Tom nodded. "Yes, he treated me with a respect I didn't expect. Maybe this can help us. Maybe it's time to change the way people see us, not just here, but everywhere." She didn't say anything immediately, but her thoughtful look indicated that she was beginning to understand. She didn't know if it would be easy or possible to change the mindset of the people in the small town, but she knew Tom was determined to try, and, in some way, she would support his decision. Even if it was an uncertain path, Tom felt that something had changed in him. He was no longer concerned with others' judgments. He was more confident in who he was and what he represented. The humiliation at the town store had been the turning point, and now, as he looked at himself in the mirror, he felt like he was beginning to discover his true worth. In the following days, Tom felt a renewed energy in his body and spirit. Although the weight of the humiliation was still there, like a mark on his memory, he no longer saw himself as the insignificant man he once was. The experience at TechSphere had been a cruel but necessary mirror. It forced him to confront the truth about how he saw himself, how he viewed his work, his life, and even his community. What once seemed like an eternity of constancy in the simple life of the fields now seemed like a cycle he needed to break. He started with small actions. Instead of keeping his head down when walking through the streets, Tom began to walk with more confidence. He began to realize that his posture wasn't just a matter of appearance, but also of attitude. He could feel the stares. Some people still looked at him with the same air of superiority, but he no longer cared as much about it. Tom knew that the only way to truly change others' perceptions would be through his actions and consistency, not through empty words or desperate attempts to fit in. I need to be someone who deserves respect, he thought as he worked on the farm. The daily tasks hadn't changed, but the way he did things was different. He started to care for the crops with more dedication, organizing his routine more efficiently, as if it were a project to be managed with more intelligence and attention. It wasn't just hard work, it was the mindset that was beginning to change. Tom no longer saw the farm as a burden, but as a valuable asset, and he knew that others' perceptions of him would start to change when he showed that he valued what he had. That Saturday, Tom prepared for something he knew would be an important step. He decided to visit the local market, where other farmers usually gathered, not just to trade, but also to socialize. He knew the small town wouldn't change overnight, but he wanted to set an example. When he arrived at the market, he was greeted with the usual looks of distrust. Some even looked away, as if his presence there wasn't important. But this time, Tom didn't feel bothered. He walked through the aisles of the market, greeting people with a confident smile, stopping to chat with a few acquaintances. He was no longer just the farmer Tom, but someone who was rebuilding himself. Someone seeking more than approval from others, but trying to build something in his own image. "How's the farm going, Tom?" asked an elderly woman, a well-known member of the community. "It's going very well, Mary. I'm paying attention to the details, trying to do things more organized. It looks like we're having a good year," he answered with a firm tone. She smiled, seeming satisfied with the answer, but Tom could notice a certain strangeness in her eyes. She wasn't used to seeing Tom so open, so willing to talk about his plans. He continued to talk to others, and slowly, people began to change the way they interacted with him. It wasn't immediate respect, but it was a start. He was beginning to be seen differently. When he returned home, Tom reflected on his experience at the market. That small interaction had been a sign that his change in posture was having some kind of impact. It wasn't a radical change, but it was a subtle transformation. People were beginning to notice something different about him. He felt that he was on the right track. The evening came, and after dinner, Tom sat down at the table again, looking at the iPhone on the table. He wasn't sure whether he should extend the invitation to Jonathan just yet, but something inside him told him it was time to act. Tom thought about how Jonathan had treated him with so much dignity, respect, and patience. He knew that this gesture of kindness could be a beacon for him, and if someone like Jonathan could treat him with respect, why couldn't he do the same with the people in town? And perhaps, who knows, by doing so, he would begin to understand his own life's value and the impact of his actions on others. The next morning, Tom picked up the phone and made the call. He wasn't nervous, but he felt a slight anxiety. He wanted to do the right thing. After a few seconds, Jonathan's familiar voice answered. "Jonathan, hello. How's it going, Tom? It's good to hear your voice. Everything's fine over there?" "Yes. Everything's great. Actually, I wanted to know if you'd be willing to visit my farm. I think it would be good for you to see how we're working here. And also, I want to thank you again for the way you treated me. I want to show you more of who I am." Jonathan was silent for a moment, as if pondering the proposal. Then he responded in a friendly tone, "Of course, Tom. I'm honored by the invitation. When would you like me to come?" "Whenever you can. No rush. I just want to show you some of my work and chat." The conversation continued, and Tom hung up the phone feeling lighter. The invitation was made. He knew this would be an important step, both for him and for Jonathan, and perhaps even for the entire town. Jonathan's visit to the farm was scheduled for the following week. Tom felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It was an opportunity to show not only his skill as a farmer, but also how much he had changed as a person. When Jonathan arrived, Tom greeted him with a genuine smile, something he hadn't done in a long time. Jonathan, always with his calm and confident demeanor, greeted Tom with a firm handshake. They walked through the farm, talking about what was being cultivated in Tom's working methods, which were now more meticulous and planned. Tom explained how he had started adopting more modern technologies and techniques he had previously thought complicated or unnecessary. He was no longer stuck on the idea that the field needed to be treated in the traditional way. He understood that evolving was part of the growth process. Jonathan was impressed. "You've done a great job, Tom. The difference is clear. You found a way to balance the old and the new. That's really important." Tom smiled, but he still didn't feel fully satisfied. "I think I'm starting to understand how we can always improve, no matter where we are. It's about looking at what works and embracing the necessary changes." The conversation flowed more easily than Tom expected. Jonathan seemed genuinely interested and, more importantly, no longer treated him like the simple, awkward man he once was. The farmer felt like he was somehow breaking free from the mental blocks that had always limited him. For him, this was not just about cultivating the land, but about understanding himself, his abilities, and his limitations. This visit held more value than just exchanging knowledge about farming. It was about rediscovering who he was. They walked a little further, and Jonathan commented on the importance of having a business vision, suggesting that Tom consider expanding his horizons. "Have you thought about working with more clients? Maybe you could sell your products directly to markets and restaurants, increase your network." Tom listened attentively. It made sense to him. Until then, he had never thought beyond selling to the local merchants. But maybe, just maybe, he had something bigger in his hands than he realized. The market was much broader and filled with opportunities he had never noticed. When the tour of the farm ended, they sat on Tom's porch, where he prepared a simple lunch with what he had harvested from his own plantation. It wasn't a sophisticated meal, but full of flavor, the simplicity Tom had always valued. As they ate, Jonathan looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "I see something new in you, Tom. You're changing. And you know, sometimes the people who doubt themselves the most are the ones who have the most to offer." Tom looked at Jonathan, feeling immense gratitude for that moment. He was no longer being treated like the defeated farmer from town, but as an equal, a man seeking more. That conversation, with its simple and wise words, was the fuel Tom needed to dedicate himself even more to his journey of change. He no longer needed to be tied to the past, nor let the humiliations of the present define him. The following week, Tom began working on the diversification project. He didn't know exactly where it would lead, but he knew he couldn't stay stagnant. It was then that he began reaching out to local markets and restaurants that might be interested in his fresh products. He started expanding his marketing efforts, creating a small website and using social media to promote what he was doing. Meanwhile, the town still looked at him with suspicion, but Tom didn't mind. He knew that time would reveal what he was really building. His vision was changing, and he had much more to offer than people could imagine. One cold morning, while Tom was at the local market talking to other farmers, one of the merchants, John, approached him with an intrigued expression. "Have you been thinking about changing your line of work, Tom? I heard about an interesting proposal that could be good for all of us." Tom looked at him with curiosity, now more open to new possibilities. "What proposal?" "Well, there's word going around that some organic stores are looking for local suppliers. I can help you get into that market. I think you have what it takes to grow." Tom thought for a moment. He was starting to get noticed. Maybe he was closer than he thought to transforming his farm and his life. He knew the road ahead would be long, but he was ready to move forward. As the weeks went by, Tom's efforts began to gain momentum. The town, which once saw him only as a humble farmer with no grand ambitions, was now beginning to see someone different in him. He wasn't just talking about change anymore. He was putting it into practice, and the small victories were adding up. His project to expand the sale of his products was taking shape. Tom had committed to building a supply network for local markets and restaurants. At first, everything was very new to him, negotiating with larger companies, ensuring his production was consistent and of high enough quality to meet demand. But with each contract signed, his confidence grew. He felt like he was becoming part of something bigger, something that had once seemed distant and out of reach. One day, while delivering a batch of fresh products to one of the markets, Tom happened to run into Mark Patterson, the owner of one of the largest supermarket chains in the region. Tom knew who he was, but had never had a real conversation with him before. Mark was the type of businessman everyone admired: successful, always well dressed, with an air of power that intimidated anyone. However, that day, Mark had a different expression. He seemed interested in talking. "You're Tom, right?" Mark asked, approaching him. "Yes, that's me," Tom replied, a bit surprised. "I've heard about you," Mark said with a smile. "I was hearing a lot of good things about your organic products. The market people are talking very highly of you. If you're interested, we could talk about a potential larger scale supply. We're looking for local producers to expand our organic line." Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. It was the opportunity he had been looking for, but it was also a huge challenge. How could he meet such a large demand? He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he knew he couldn't let this chance slip by. "I'd be very interested, Mark. I can produce on a larger scale, but I'll need some time to adjust production," Tom replied, trying to stay composed, but feeling the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Mark nodded, understanding. "Of course, I know it's a big step. We can start with a small contract and increase as the production adjusts. But, Tom, quality must be guaranteed. We can't compromise on standards. If you can maintain that, it'll be a good start." The contract was signed that day. Tom left the market with the feeling that he was finally on the right path, but also with a huge responsibility on his shoulders. He knew this deal was an opportunity that could change his life. For it to work, he would need to work harder than ever before. In the following days, Tom focused on ensuring his production was up to the promised standards. He began partnering with other small producers in the region, diversifying his offerings and making sure his farm could meet the growing demand. He also hired more staff to help him, not just to increase production, but to maintain quality at every stage. But not everything was easy. Tom began to notice that, even with his transformation, the town still viewed him with some distance. Some people didn't believe he could really succeed at something so big. Others, although happy for his progress, still saw him as Farmer Tom, someone who might have some good ideas, but wasn't on the level of the town's big business owner. But Tom didn't care about those opinions anymore. He was more focused than ever. He knew what mattered was what he was building, and that his change in attitude was reflected in his work and results. He knew success wouldn't come overnight, but if he stayed persistent and determined, he could prove everyone wrong. Then, one cold night, while organizing preparations for the next delivery on his farm, Tom's phone rang. It was Jonathan. "Hey, Tom, how's it going?" "I'm good, Jonathan. A lot going on. Things are going really well, to be honest. I knew you had potential. I heard about the contract with the market." "Congratulations, man. That's a big step." Tom smiled, feeling recognized and appreciated. "Thanks, Jonathan. I wouldn't have made it here without your help. Your friendship has been crucial." Jonathan seemed pleased with Tom's progress. "You're doing great. And remember, Tom, others don't have to understand your journey. What matters most is that you understand what you're doing and where you want to go. I trust you." Those words from Jonathan struck a deep chord with Tom. He didn't need anyone else's approval, nor did he care about the doubtful glances. He was building something from scratch, and he knew success was within his reach. The town might still see him as old Tom, but the future he was creating was far more promising. With the contract signed and the pressure to meet high-quality standards, Tom plunged headfirst into expanding his farm. He was determined to meet the growing demand for organic products in the market. But he knew it wouldn't be easy. He now had a much greater responsibility than before, not only to his farm, but also to the new contracts and the employees who depended on him to secure their jobs. In the first few days, Tom's production was going well. He managed to adjust the processes and, with the help of his new employees, increased the volume of fresh products. But as the deliveries became more frequent, new challenges arose. The pace was exhausting. Tom wasn't used to dealing with the logistics of a larger business, and small setbacks started to appear. There were issues with storage, transportation, and even problems with some of the cultivation techniques he was still learning. One Monday morning, as Tom was reviewing the production reports, he received an unexpected call from Mark Patterson. "Hi, Tom. How's it going?" Mark asked. "Hi, Mark. Yeah, everything's fine. Just adjusting a few things here on the farm," Tom replied, trying to hide the exhaustion in his voice. "Look, I'm happy with what you're doing, but there are a few things we need to address. The quality of the products has been excellent, but some recent deliveries were delayed. This needs to be fixed. Our end client can't wait." Tom felt a weight on his shoulders. He knew the market was watching him, and the last thing he wanted was to disappoint his first big client. "I understand, Mark. I'll take care of it right away." "It won't happen again." The call ended abruptly, and Tom felt the pressure mount. Not only did he need to solve the logistics issue, but he also had to maintain the quality standards Mark and his other clients expected. He knew this would require more than just good planning. He'd need more resources and possibly a new type of management. He then made a decision. It was time to hire an experienced manager to help handle the administrative and operational side of the business. Although he was used to handling everything on his own, he knew that if he wanted to take the business to the next level, he'd have to delegate and trust others more. After a few interviews, Tom found someone who seemed like the perfect fit for the role. Sarah, a woman with extensive experience in agricultural operations management. She had a deep understanding of the industry and a practical approach that seemed to complement Tom's vision. In the first few days of working with Sarah, Tom realized how much her expertise made a difference. She helped identify several inefficiencies in production and suggested adjustments that could save time and reduce costs. Sarah also helped implement a delivery monitoring system to ensure that no delays would occur. The partnership with Sarah brought a new dynamic to the farm, and Tom felt that he was finally starting to understand what was necessary to keep his business growing. He was no longer overwhelmed with all the tasks and could focus on what really mattered, ensuring quality and expansion. Meanwhile, the town continued to watch from a distance. Some of Tom's old acquaintances began to realize that he was becoming more than just a small-time farmer. He was becoming a real businessman, someone earning respect in the local market. Even some of his former rivals began to look at him with a new perspective, though many still doubted his ability to maintain success in the long run. One Friday afternoon, while Tom was visiting the local market to deliver more fresh products, he ran into an old friend, Mike, whom he had lost touch with for years. Mike had always been a bit cynical about Tom's dreams, always saying he'd never get very far. But now, Mike's look was different. "I heard you're doing well, Tom," Mike said, genuinely surprised. "I never thought you'd make it. Looks like you've got something really big going on here." Tom smiled, but inside, he felt a type of satisfaction that wasn't just about proving something to Mike. It was about Tom's own evolution. He had believed in himself, and now, he was seeing the results. "I'm still at the beginning, Mike," Tom replied humbly. "But yeah, things are going well." As he walked away from Mike, Tom felt a sense of gratitude. He knew the road to success wouldn't be easy, and there would still be many obstacles ahead. But he was more confident than ever. He was now surrounded by a competent team, his contracts were expanding, and the town was starting to understand that the simple farmer from before had much more to offer than anyone had imagined. Tom no longer needed to prove himself to anyone. He was building his own journey. And that was what really mattered. He was increasingly focused on improving every day, transforming his farm not just into a successful business, but into a legacy. With Sarah on board, Tom's farm finally began to run more smoothly. The adjustments she had suggested began to show concrete results, and deliveries were on time again. However, the challenges didn't stop there. As the business grew, the pressure to maintain high-quality standards and further increase production became constant. In one of their weekly meetings, Sarah suggested conducting a more detailed survey of what else could be done to increase production without compromising quality. She pointed out that the more remote areas of the farm, which had previously been neglected by Tom due to a focus on central production, could be used to grow a new variety of organic products. Tom pondered the idea. While expanding production further was risky, he felt this might be the opportunity he needed to solidify his brand and establish his presence in the market. After carefully analyzing the costs and benefits, Tom decided to invest in more land and equipment. Meanwhile, Mark Patterson, the investor who had helped propel the start of the expansion, reached out to Tom again. "You've done a great job with production, Tom, but now we have to think bigger. There's an opportunity with a local supermarket chain, and they're looking for exclusive suppliers. The competition is tough, so if you want in, you'll have to give it everything you've got." The pressure began to weigh on Tom once again. He knew this contract with the supermarket chain could be a game changer, but there were many risks involved. To ensure that production would meet the demand, he'd have to hire more workers and invest in farming technologies he didn't yet fully understand. However, a new crisis arose. The growing demand for fresh products was putting pressure on Tom's finances, and he began to realize that without significant investment in technology and capital, he might not be able to meet the supermarket chain's demands. Even with Sarah's support and her experience in management, he was still at a critical point in his journey. Then a new opportunity emerged, but with it, more risks. A friend of Sarah's, Jason, a local entrepreneur specializing in small business financing, offered to help. Jason suggested Tom consider a business line of credit, something he had used in his own businesses. If you get the right financing, you can scale up your production and meet the supermarket chain's needs without compromising quality, Jason said. Tom, with a tight heart, decided to follow Jason's advice. He met with a local bank, and after several discussions and negotiations, he secured the credit he needed to buy more equipment and hire more workers. This represented a huge financial leap, and Tom knew that if he failed, he could lose everything he had worked for. As the farm prepared for this new increase in production, Tom also found himself involved in a silent war with his competitors. Some of his local rivals began launching advertising campaigns to undermine his reputation. They started spreading rumors about the quality of his products and even questioned his farming practices. Tom was determined not to let this affect him. He knew that to succeed, he needed to stay focused on his mission and not be distracted by attacks. Over time, his efforts began to pay off. He worked tirelessly alongside his team, always overseeing the processes and ensuring that quality was maintained. When the day came for the supermarket chain to finalize the contract with Tom, he knew his efforts had paid off. The farm's expansion was now solidified. He had the necessary financial resources, increased production, and a network of suppliers that would ensure his market presence for a long time. However, the most surprising thing of all was the impact the news had on his town. When the first batches of his products hit the supermarkets, sales exceeded all expectations. Tom's fresh and organic products became an immediate success. Customers were thrilled with the quality and sustainability of his production. The town began to realize what Tom had achieved, and many people who had once seen him as just a small-town farmer began to treat him with newfound respect. At an event organized by the supermarket chain to promote its suppliers, Tom was invited to speak about his journey. That day, as he stood on stage, looking at the audience filled with local businesspeople and loyal customers, he realized that his success had not only been the result of good business decisions, but also of his persistence and belief in himself. With a smile, Tom began his speech. Sometimes, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. When we started this project, no one believed it was possible. But today, here we are. Hard work, trust in the people around me, and the desire to never give up brought us here. The audience applauded standing. And in that moment, Tom knew that he had achieved much more than just financial success. He had earned respect, and to him, that was the true triumph. Tom's farm was experiencing significant growth, and the pressure to keep everything under control was immense. He had secured the necessary financing and was now ready to expand. But the challenges that came with the rapid changes were not easy to handle. Sarah remained a crucial ally, and her recommendations were becoming increasingly important. When Tom decided to invest in new land and equipment, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He was now not only managing his farm, but also dealing with a vast number of employees, new suppliers, and an uncertain future. However, the confidence he felt with Sarah's support was soon tested. When the farm entered its full expansion phase, Tom realized that the business was becoming more impersonal. The new employees didn't always share the same passion for farming and quality that Tom and Sarah had. Some even seemed more concerned with the quantity of production, disregarding the sustainable processes Tom had carefully established. We're doing our best to maintain quality, but Tom, the pressure to deliver more and more is enormous, Sarah said during an early morning meeting. She seemed worried but also determined. Tom knew she was right. Quality could be sacrificed if they didn't find balance, but Tom also had a clear vision of where he wanted to go. He knew that the growth of the farm needed to be balanced with respect for sustainability and the quality of their products. However, a surprise awaited him. One of the large supermarket chains was offering a partnership that could guarantee long-term contracts. But their demand was clear: increase production substantially. If you can increase your production without losing quality, we can guarantee an exclusive contract with our chain, said Greg, the chain's representative, during a meeting at Tom's office. This promise was tempting, but the pressure was overwhelming. Tom didn't want to compromise the values he had established. However, when he spoke with Sarah, she encouraged him to try. You have the resources now. If you don't seize this opportunity, someone else will, she said, always with the pragmatism of someone who understood the market. After much deliberation, Tom decided to accept the challenge, but he knew he would need to make adjustments. Building new facilities and acquiring more technology would be essential. He also hired new agricultural engineers to implement more efficient farming techniques. But the changes didn't stop there. He had to adjust his marketing strategy, which meant new contracts with advertising agencies and, most difficult of all, a significant increase in his management team. However, it didn't take long for an unexpected obstacle to arise. One of Tom's main competitors, a large farm called Hillcrest Farms, began using aggressive tactics to undermine his reputation. They started publicly questioning the sustainability of Tom's products, spreading rumors about the use of fertilizers and pesticides in his crops. You need to respond to this, Tom. If not, the competition will take advantage, warned Sarah upon hearing the first rumors. Tom, who had always believed in his organic farming process, became frustrated. He knew the truth was on his side, but the war of words could be a dangerous distraction. In response, Tom and Sarah began to build a marketing campaign focused on the transparency and sustainability of their processes. They invited journalists to visit the farm and see for themselves how the production was done. Meanwhile, the work on the farm was intensifying. Tom spent most of his time coordinating new processes and overseeing necessary adjustments. The expansion was not only putting more pressure on his operation, but also on his health. Sleepless nights began to accumulate, and he felt the weight of a business that was growing faster than he had ever imagined possible. It was at this moment of greatest tension that Jason, Sarah's friend, stepped in once again. Tom, you're overloading yourself. I understand the challenge, but you can't do it all by yourself. If you keep this up, you're going to burn the candle at both ends, Jason said during a private conversation. You need more help, and fast. Tom knew Jason was right. He decided to seek out more experienced leaders to help manage the farm. Over time, he found an operations manager who was more than willing to step in and help structure the expansion more efficiently. With the help of his expanded team and more refined production processes, Tom was able to meet the growing demand of the supermarket chain while maintaining the quality he had always valued. He was publicly recognized for his dedication and the transparency of his farming practices. But success was still not complete. Last month, the supermarket chain announced that Tom's product sales had exceeded all expectations. This not only secured his place in the local market, but also opened doors for new contracts with other large distributors. Tom had achieved the success he had longed for, but he knew this victory was not the end. He had learned that the real secret was balancing the challenges of expansion with maintaining his core values. Now, with the farm stabilized in a brighter future than ever, Tom felt ready to face any adversity. He was more prepared for the next phase and knew that the real battle was just beginning. After investments in new facilities and the implementation of new agricultural technologies, Tom's farm began to stand out impressively. Improvements in production and an expanded cultivation capacity came quickly, and the results began to show. The farm was now producing more than ever, with a more efficient cultivation process and a stronger operational structure. But problems didn't take long to surface. During a networking event hosted by the supermarket chain buying his products, Tom had the opportunity to speak with other prominent business people. Most of the time, he felt uncomfortable in environments like that, with high-level executives discussing their own market strategies and sophisticated technologies. Tom still preferred the simplicity and honesty of the field, but he knew that to ensure long-term success, he needed to adapt. Tom, you're an example of hard work and perseverance. But the future of agriculture is in biotechnology. Without it, you'll never be more than a small operation, said one of the most influential businessmen, almost condescendingly. Tom tensed but decided not to react immediately. He knew there was no need to engage in an argument, but doubt crept into his mind. He didn't want to be just another farmer in the market. He wanted to be a leader in quality, and that was more important than any technology. Sarah, who was by his side, noticed the shift in Tom's demeanor. When the conversation ended, she pulled him aside to a quieter corner. You can't please everyone. Don't let this affect you. What you've built here is unique. Don't let anyone take that from you, she said, always reliable but also careful with her words. Tom knew Sarah was right, but what the businessman had said made him reflect. He couldn't settle. He needed to keep up with the pace of the business world without losing focus on what truly motivated him, keeping the farm true to its principles of sustainability and quality. However, the pressure to innovate was increasing, and he would need to make a decision, follow his vision or give in to market demands. At home, after the event, Tom lay in bed and thought deeply. He began to see the field differently, not just as a place to cultivate, but as a field of possibilities, where innovation could coexist with tradition. But he also knew that any mistake now could be costly. The competition was fierce, and his vision of a sustainable farm still needed defending against critics. It was then that the opportunity for a new contract with a giant in the agricultural industry appeared. But there was a price. He would have to give up one of the core principles of his production. The company was willing to pay a significant amount, but the demand was clear. Tom would have to modify his product line to use synthetic fertilizers, something he had always refused to do. The dilemma was clear: money, fame, and even faster expansion, or maintain the integrity and values on which the farm had been built. The pressure intensified when the competition started adopting aggressive methods. Hillcrest Farms, a major rival farm, was using synthetic fertilizers and promoting their practices as more efficient and profitable. They began winning contracts that Tom never imagined were possible. The battle to maintain market leadership became personal. Tom had to make a decision. With Sarah's help, he began to search for alternatives that could reduce production costs without compromising his integrity. Instead of giving in to external pressure, Tom decided to intensify research and invest in alternative solutions that would keep the farm within its sustainable principles. He hired a team of specialists and agricultural researchers to develop new organic farming methods that would use fewer resources while increasing production. It was a bold move, but Tom knew that if he could prove his approach was more efficient and profitable in the long run, he would gain more than any short-term contract. Meanwhile, the tension grew. Tom knew Hillcrest Farms wasn't sitting idle. They were preparing to launch a line of cheaper and more efficient products, and were running a massive marketing campaign to promote their practices. As competition increased and pressures on his operation mounted, Tom began to question whether he was truly ready to face this new stage of success. Sleepless nights started to take their toll, and he saw that his health was beginning to be affected. He was constantly tired, his mind never stopped, and he felt more isolated than ever. That's when Jason came back into the picture. He suggested that Tom take a few days off to rest and think clearly, to evaluate what he truly wanted for the future of the farm. "You can't keep going like this, Tom. You're burning yourself out. Sometimes, you have to take a step back to see the bigger picture." Tom knew Jason was right. He needed time to reflect, but the pressure of being the leader, of ensuring that the farm didn't lose the place it had earned, was in his blood. The battle was far from over, but Tom now knew that the real fight wasn't against external competition. It was against the limits he had imposed on himself. The decision to step away for a few days, though difficult, gave Tom a necessary moment of reflection. He left the farm temporarily under Sarah's care, who had always believed in Tom's potential but knew he had to face his own demons to grow. During this time away, Tom sought to talk with other farmers who followed similar principles to his own. He traveled to a small conference on sustainable farming practices in a nearby town. There, he met people who thought like him, who believed in organic and sustainable farming not as a step backward but as the future. However, the reality of the market was harsh: higher prices, demands for greater production, and industry giants were imposing conditions that few could contest. At the conference, Tom met a woman named Laura, a farmer specializing in biological pest control methods, who was revolutionizing the way to produce without harsh chemicals. She shared techniques with him that, although unconventional, offered great promise for increasing productivity without compromising product quality. "It's possible to grow without destroying what you've built, Tom. You have to start thinking not just about how to compete, but about how to be an example for others," Laura said, with a confidence that Tom immediately admired. She challenged him to start seeing the farm as an agricultural research center, where new practices could be tested and applied before being widely adopted. The idea of transforming the farm into an incubator for agricultural innovation seemed like an exciting possibility. Returning home, Tom felt reinvigorated. He knew that the key to success was balancing necessary innovations with his own principles. But when he returned to the farm, he found Sarah worried. Sales were starting to decline. Despite their efforts, Hillcrest Farms had captured a significant portion of the market with its cheaper products. It was an unfair competition, but the numbers didn't lie. The pressure was at its peak. From his conversation with Laura, Tom decided to take action. He began implementing the new practices he had learned, starting with an advanced composting system to improve soil quality and reduce fertilizer costs. Additionally, he introduced new irrigation systems that used less water, something essential in the region's dry climate. At the same time, Tom realized that the real competition wasn't just about being the biggest producer, it was about being the most innovative. He began focusing on the quality of his products, introducing special varieties of fruits and vegetables that were tastier and healthier, and working with local chefs and restaurants to promote his produce. It was a risky bet, but he was determined to prove that, over time, quality would outweigh quantity. However, what Tom didn't expect was that Hillcrest Farms would react quickly. The competitor launched an aggressive marketing campaign, hiring digital influencers to promote their products and launching promotions in supermarkets that made their prices even more attractive. The battle seemed to be spiraling out of control, and Tom was beginning to question, was he on the right path? During a business meeting with investors, Tom was confronted directly. "You're losing ground, Tom. You need to speed up your decisions. If you can't change your model, what you've built could disintegrate," one of the investors said. Tom felt the weight of the words, and a sense of helplessness flooded him. He knew he needed to innovate quickly, but he also feared losing everything he had worked so hard for. As he pondered how to react to the growing pressure, Sarah came up with a bold proposal. "What if, instead of just focusing on the local market, you thought about expanding to other states? We could create a premium product line and sell it directly to consumers who care about quality and sustainability. We could start a movement. Let's be pioneers, Tom. Let's grab the attention of conscious consumers." Tom was silent, absorbing the idea. He knew it was a big gamble, but Sarah was right. He couldn't just compete on low prices. He had to create a brand, a unique identity that consumers would want to support. But before Tom could make a decision, an unexpected phone call made him stop everything. It was Jason, his old childhood friend. He was concerned about the farm's situation and knew Tom was going through tough times. "Look, Tom, I know you're doing your best, but you need a strategy that goes beyond farming. It's not just about the product. It's about how you position yourself in the market. You have a good name, a good product, but you need something more to leverage." Tom thought deeply. Jason was right. The farm wasn't just an agricultural operation. It was, or could be, a powerful brand, synonymous with quality and responsibility. The idea of expanding to other states was beginning to seem not just necessary, but inevitable. It was then that Tom made the decision to finally follow Sarah and Jason's advice. He would begin a campaign to restructure his farm and reposition his brand. The first step would be to create a strong brand identity, focused on sustainability and premium products, to compete directly with the industry giants. But as he prepared for the big change, Hillcrest Farms wasn't standing still. They had their own cards up their sleeves, and the battle was just beginning. Tom's decision to restructure the farm and reposition his brand was a bold and necessary step. However, he soon realized that turning Hilltop Acres into a beacon of innovation wouldn't be simple. It was more than just investing in new technologies or farming methods. He needed to build a new identity that could attract consumers and, at the same time, distance itself from the shadow of the giant Hillcrest Farms. The first action was to revitalize the premium product line. Tom wanted to create something truly different. With Sarah's help, he began working on a new cultivation system based on biological techniques that reduced environmental impact. He also focused on expanding into market niches that sought organic, pesticide-free, ethically produced food. The goal was to create a genuine connection with consumers, showing that Hilltop Acres products were not just food, but an expression of a healthy and responsible lifestyle. Sarah, who was becoming more involved with the farm's operations, had the idea of starting a series of videos about Hilltop Acres' sustainable cultivation process. They would be short, focused on the daily life of the farm, showing how they farmed ethically and organically. The idea was to create a narrative that would allow consumers to connect with the process and the people behind the products. She knew that transparency would be a great ally in building a trusted brand. As Tom dedicated himself to the restructuring process, he couldn't forget the impact of Hillcrest Farms, which still dominated the local market with its aggressive pricing strategy and mass marketing. The competition was getting fiercer, and Tom knew the only way to survive was to differentiate himself even more. He started making contacts with renowned chefs and high-end restaurants, trying to establish partnerships that would elevate Hilltop Acres products and place them on the tables of middle and upper class consumers willing to pay more for quality. But the difficulties didn't stop there. The impact of Hillcrest Farms' campaign was immediate. Their lower prices began to dominate supermarket shelves, and Tom quickly realized that his premium pricing strategy might not be enough. He needed more. He needed a revolution in the market. Then, Tom had an audacious idea to launch Hilltop Acres as a lifestyle brand. It wasn't just about selling products, but about creating an identity that people would want to embrace, something associated with health, sustainability, and social responsibility. He wanted to build a community around the brand, where consumers felt that by purchasing its products, they were becoming part of something bigger. The strategy involved everything from awareness campaigns to launching wellness events and sustainable festivals. As he discussed this idea with Sarah, they realized that the timing couldn't have been better. Social media was on the rise, and many influencers were promoting products and brands committed to sustainability. So, Tom invested in hiring a group of niche influencers, specialized in sustainability and healthy eating, to promote his products and spread the message of Hilltop Acres. The first launch event took place at a small organic fair in a nearby town. Tom, with Sarah's help, organized a booth that told the story of the farm, its agricultural practices, and its commitments to the environment. They brought samples of their products and handed out leaflets explaining the methods they used. To Tom's surprise, the event was a success, and people were genuinely interested in the story behind the farm. But while Tom traveled to other events and expanded his partnerships, he received an unexpected call from an old friend, Jason. "Tom, we've got a problem. Hillcrest Farms just launched a line of organic products and is trying to position itself as a sustainable brand too. They have more resources than you, and they're trying to copy your idea." Tom was surprised but not discouraged. He knew that copying an idea meant his strategy was working, but he also knew it would take more effort to stand out. Hilltop Acres couldn't just be another option on the market. It needed to be unique, authentic, and, above all, engaging for consumers. So, Tom and Sarah started planning their next big move, an exclusive event, a festival for sustainability and responsible farming, where Hilltop Acres would be the main sponsor. The event would include lectures, workshops, an organic product fair, and live performances. They invited farmers from all over the country to share their experiences with sustainable agriculture, and the idea was immediately well received by the public. Expectations were high, but so were the risks. If the event failed, it could mean the end for Hilltop Acres. With the support of his team, Tom pressed on, determined to make Hilltop Acres a nationally recognized name. But the shadow of Hillcrest Farms was stronger than ever, and Tom knew that only a major move could ensure his survival in the market. The event would be his last shot at solidifying his place. Tom knew that the event he was planning could be the key to turning the tide of difficulties and establishing Hilltop Acres as a true lifestyle brand and quality player in the agricultural market. The weeks that followed were intense, with Tom and his team working non-stop to ensure everything went perfectly. They hired event planning experts, formed partnerships with small businesses and influencers, and took steps to ensure the sustainability festival would be one of a kind. But while the team was immersed in the organization, signs of pressure began to emerge. Ingredient suppliers started raising prices, and sponsors began questioning the event's viability, fearing it wouldn't be big enough to generate the return they expected. To make matters worse, Tom received a notification that Hillcrest Farms, with its vast resources, had launched a line of organic products similar to Hilltop Acres. They were also sponsoring a series of wellness and sustainability events, making it even harder for the small farm to compete in the saturated market. The competition was intensifying, and the battle for consumer market share had become a race against time. Tom knew he couldn't afford to fail. He was betting everything on this. The pressure was becoming harder to bear, but Tom couldn't give up. Hilltop Acres was his last chance to keep his dignity, to show that a small farm with solid principles and a love for the land could defeat an industry giant. As the event approached, Tom found an unexpected ally. Jason, Tom's longtime friend who had offered to help him in the early days of the farm, called to offer support. "Tom, it's not going to be easy, but you're doing the right thing. I was there when you started the farm, and I'll be here now to make sure the event happens." Jason knew that Hillcrest Farms had the financial power, but Hilltop Acres had something no big company could buy: authenticity. With this new breath of life, Tom began to turn around some of the financial difficulties. He made budget adjustments, cutting unnecessary costs, and focusing more on partnerships with local small businesses. He invested more in word-of-mouth marketing, convincing consumers to believe in the true mission of Hilltop Acres. To many people's surprise, the days leading up to the event were the busiest in the farm's history. Consumers began to notice the change. Now there was something different about the products and how they were presented. The day of the festival arrived, and the farm was in full swing. Organic food stalls, sustainable brand booths, workshops on sustainable cultivation, and even a space for meditation and wellness were ready. The program was packed with expert lectures, demonstrations of ethical farming practices, and a live performance by a popular artist who was also an advocate for sustainability. Everything was set to be a huge success. The event began with an enthusiastic reception, but soon, difficulties began to arise. At first, the attendance was lower than expected, which caused some tension for Tom. He feared that the lack of participants could damage the image of Hilltop Acres and his own credibility. However, something began to change as the day went on. People started to gather at the product booths, asking about Hilltop Acres, attending the lectures, and more importantly, buying the farm's products. The atmosphere began to shift, and what seemed like an empty event soon turned into a true celebration of healthy and conscious eating. Meanwhile, Hillcrest Farms, which had planned a similar event in a neighboring town, saw its expectations plummet. Their event was marked by empty advertising, with no real connection to the consumers. Low prices and lack of authenticity started to weigh against them. Many of the influencers who had partnered with Hillcrest Farms began reposting content about Hilltop Acres Festival, praising the products and the farm's true approach. This created a domino effect. More and more people began attending Tom's event, and social media started filling up with posts about Hilltop Acres. By the end of the day, Tom was surprised by the event's success. Hilltop Acres not only saw a huge increase in sales, but also gained a new legion of loyal customers. The event was covered by local media, which highlighted Hilltop Acres' authenticity and its mission to promote sustainability in an accessible way. For the first time, Tom felt that his vision was becoming a reality. Looking out at the horizon, Tom knew the battle wasn't over yet, but Hilltop Acres had taken a huge step forward in its transformation journey. He was starting to be recognized not just as a farmer, but as a leader in the sustainable agriculture industry. But more importantly, he knew this event was a reflection of his effort, his passion, and his dedication. It was proof that, even when adversity seemed overwhelming, perseverance could lead to victory. The success of the event at Hilltop Acres was a major milestone for Tom. But deep down, he knew there were still many obstacles ahead. Hillcrest Farms, despite the failure of their event, wasn't going to give up easily. They were ready to use their financial power and aggressive marketing to try to crush the competition. Tom felt he couldn't lower his guard. He needed to stay ahead, not just in terms of sales, but in what made Hilltop Acres stand out: authenticity. The morning after the event, Tom received a surprise call. It was Jason, his longtime friend who had been by his side during the early tough days of the farm. "Tom, I saw the event, and I know this is just the beginning. I've got something for you. A proposal that could change everything." Jason revealed that he had managed to establish contact with an investor interested in supporting Hilltop Acres to expand the farm and its operations. However, the investor wanted Tom to make a difficult choice. He would have to open the farm to more external capital, including some changes in management and operations, in order for the business to grow on a larger scale. Tom knew this could be a risk, but it also represented a chance to ensure long-term survival. As he reflected on Jason's proposal, the pressure to compete with Hillcrest Farms mounted. They had begun bombarding consumers with heavy promotions, creating attractive discounts for agricultural products that, while cheap, were produced unsustainably. It was an attempt to undermine Hilltop Acres' appeal and put Tom's farm in a tough spot. But Tom didn't let himself be discouraged. He knew he wasn't just selling food, but a lifestyle, and that was a differentiator that Hillcrest Farms couldn't easily imitate. So, Tom made an important decision. He chose to accept Jason's offer and open Hilltop Acres to investment. He knew that in order to continue growing, he would need more resources, but at the same time, he didn't want the essence of Hilltop Acres to be lost along the way. He demanded that the investor respect the farm's philosophy of maintaining sustainable practices, supporting local small producers, and continuing to offer high-quality organic products. After some negotiations, the investor agreed to Tom's terms. With the investment, Tom was able to expand his production capacity and further improve the farm's infrastructure. He also hired new marketing experts to increase the brand's visibility. Now, Hilltop Acres had the resources needed to compete equally with industry giants. But he knew the work was not finished. It was time to take the consumer experience to a new level. With the new partnership, Tom decided to take a bold step. He launched a new line of premium products, including organic cheeses and preserves, made exclusively with ingredients from his farm. The idea was to create a premium brand that, although more expensive, would be accessible to conscious consumers willing to pay more for quality. Tom also expanded the customer experience at Hilltop Acres, offering workshops on sustainable farming, organic gastronomy, and even educational farming programs for local schools. He wanted Hilltop Acres to be more than a farm. He wanted it to be a learning hub and a platform to promote sustainable agriculture in a practical way. As Hilltop Acres began to gain more notoriety, Hillcrest Farms became increasingly aggressive in its advertising campaigns. They started sponsoring top-level influencers, advertising in major magazines and TV programs. The pressure was high, but Tom knew his business was built on solid foundations. He decided to stay focused on what truly mattered: the quality of his products and the loyalty of his consumers. In the days that followed, the market began to respond positively to Hilltop Acres' premium line. Loyal farm customers started publicly defending the brand, praising its products and commitment to sustainability. Social media was buzzing with posts and hashtags, and Hilltop Acres was becoming increasingly present in the minds of consumers looking for ethical and conscious alternatives. The pressure from Hillcrest Farms, though still strong, was being softened by the impact that Tom and his team were making. Then, at a local awards ceremony, Hilltop Acres was recognized as the most innovative and sustainable farm in the region. This award became an important milestone in Tom's journey, representing the recognition of the effort, perseverance, and vision he had poured into his farm. It was not just an award, but a symbol that the small actions and decisions of one person can have a much bigger impact than we imagine. With the award in hand, Tom felt a deep sense of relief. He knew that Hilltop Acres' future was secure, not because he had won a battle, but because he had found a way to honor his vision and values in a world where money and competition often overshadow what truly matters. Now, he knew that the path to success would not be easy, but he was more prepared than ever to continue his journey. Hilltop Acres was not just a farm. It was a brand that represented hope, authenticity, and the fight for a better future for all. With the new premium product line and the growing recognition for its sustainable approach, Hilltop Acres was indeed reaching new heights. However, Tom couldn't relax. Competition was becoming even more intense, especially since Hillcrest Farms, though failing to gain public support for its event, would not give up easily. They were determined to regain lost ground. With the investor's proposal, Tom had started to see Hilltop Acres in a different light. He was ready for change, but with caution. Every step he took had to be calculated, and most importantly, he didn't want to lose the essence of the farm. He knew his competitive edge was the personal touch and passion for sustainable farming. However, the reality of being an entrepreneur required him to take risks. The market was changing rapidly, and if he didn't adapt, he could be left behind. 1 week after the event, the unexpected happened. Hillcrest Farms announced a new project, an enterprise focused on organic food and sustainability, something that seemed like a direct imitation of what Tom was doing at Hilltop Acres. The company had hired a team of specialists and consultants to create a premium product line, which would directly compete with Hilltop Acres' exclusive products. This new line came with a massive advertising campaign, positioning Hillcrest Farms as the leader in sustainability in the sector. The move was clear. Hillcrest wanted to take Hilltop Acres' place as the reference in responsible farming practices. Tom felt the weight of the pressure, but he wasn't shaken. He knew he was ahead, not just because of the quality of the products, but because of the philosophy embedded in every action he took. Hillcrest Farms was trying to copy his approach, but without understanding the deep meaning behind it. This was merely a reflection of what they truly were: a company trying to follow a trend, not create something real and unique. Tom saw this as an opportunity to show his customers the genuine value of his farm, something that Hillcrest could never replicate. In a meeting with his team, Tom discussed the situation. They want to compete with us, but they won't understand what we have here. It's not just about selling organic products or practicing sustainable farming. It's about offering something more. It's about creating a true connection with our customers and our community. And that's something they will never be able to copy. After this meeting, Tom made a strategic decision. He would strengthen Hilltop Acres' identity and its bond with the local community even further. He organized a public event, which would be completely free, to teach consumers and other small local farms about sustainable farming practices. The event would include lectures, organic farming workshops, cooking classes, and farm tours. The idea was to make Hilltop Acres a learning center and inspiration for everyone who wanted to adopt a more sustainable lifestyle. The event, which took place the following weekend, was a resounding success. The local community came out in full force, and many new customers got to know Hilltop Acres' work more deeply. Additionally, the local press covered the event, highlighting the farm as an example of social and environmental responsibility. This generated a huge increase in the brand's visibility, and customers began to value Hilltop Acres' authenticity even more, as it was not only showcasing its products, but also its commitment to the environment and the future of agriculture. Meanwhile, Hillcrest Farms began to face some challenges. The new product line wasn't achieving the expected results. Although lower prices attracted some consumers, many were dissatisfied with the lack of transparency in their farming practices and the excessive advertising pressure. People were starting to notice that, no matter how grand the campaigns were, the human touch and real commitment to sustainability were missing. Tom was finally seeing the fruits of his careful and mindful approach. Hilltop Acres was no longer just a small farm. It had become a reference in the sector, a community of people who believed in a more sustainable future. More than a competition of products or prices, it was a battle of values. Tom knew that, although it was impossible to predict the future, the true strength of Hilltop Acres lay in the connection he had with people and the impact his farm had on their lives. As Hillcrest Farms tried, unsuccessfully, to follow Tom's steps, he focused on what truly mattered, his legacy and vision. He no longer worried about being the biggest or most profitable. He wanted to be remembered as someone who made a genuine difference. Hilltop Acres was on a new path, stronger than ever, and Tom knew that the future of the farm was more than secure, it was just beginning. The event organized by Tom was a significant milestone for Hilltop Acres. But the challenges were far from over. Hillcrest Farms wasn't willing to back down so easily. Although Tom's farm had shown strength by creating a connection with the community, the big corporation was ready to fight with all the resources it had. However, instead of being overwhelmed by the growing pressure, Tom used the competition as motivation to innovate even further. He knew that, to stay ahead, he needed to go beyond just sustainable farming practices. He needed to create something that consumers couldn't find anywhere else. With this idea in mind, Tom began to expand Hilltop Acres' portfolio to include products derived from his own production, such as juices, jams, and even natural cosmetics, all made with ingredients grown directly on the farm. He sought out local suppliers for materials that could be used to create these new products and ensured that the line followed the sustainability philosophy he valued. Each product would carry Hilltop Acres' unique identity and the promise of quality and respect for the environment. At the same time, Tom dedicated himself to a new marketing strategy. Instead of just promoting the farm's products, he decided to share the story behind each item. Hilltop Acres would be more than a farm, it would be a story of transformation, resilience, and commitment to a better future. He started creating digital content, including videos and social media posts, showing the cultivation process and the positive impact his farm was having on the region. The goal was to show that by buying from Hilltop Acres, customers were becoming part of something bigger. The response was immediate. The new social media focus generated significant engagement, and the brand spread beyond its hometown. People from other parts of the state began searching for Hilltop Acres products, and new points of sale began to open. The production of juices and jams, especially, began to gain popularity. The products were being sold at natural food markets and specialty stores, and soon Tom received an offer to distribute his jams in a local supermarket chain. Meanwhile, Hillcrest Farms was trying to keep up with the speed at which Tom was innovating. They launched a new line of juices and food products, but the pressure to compete with the authenticity of Hilltop Acres was beginning to show cracks. Many consumers started questioning the quality of Hillcrest's products, especially because the brand had a reputation as a big corporation, and people were turning away from large corporations in favor of brands with more history and local connection. The peak of this competition came at a large event held in a neighboring town. Both farms were present, and the competition for public recognition was fierce. Tom knew that if he wanted to solidify Hilltop Acres' position in the market, this event was his chance to prove that his philosophy was the future. Instead of just showcasing his products, he organized a live demonstration of how his juices and jams were produced. With guided tours of the farm and interactions with the employees, he also invited some local chefs to create recipes using his products, offering a culinary experience for the visitors. On the day of the event, Hilltop Acres was packed. The Hillcrest Farms booth, on the other hand, looked more like a product display. Lacking emotion, no connection. While visitors enjoyed fresh juices and learned about Tom's production process, they found themselves immersed in the story of Hilltop Acres. The Hillcrest booth, although well prepared, couldn't offer the same level of engagement. At the end of the event, Hilltop Acres sales exceeded all expectations. But the most profound impact came from the message that was conveyed. Hillcrest Farms might have the resources, but Hilltop Acres had something that no giant corporation could copy: a true purpose and a commitment to the community. The event became a turning point, with Hilltop Acres being seen not just as a farm, but as a movement. In the days that followed, Tom began receiving even more offers, not only from other markets but also from investors interested in financing his expansion. However, he was more focused on maintaining the essence of his brand, which now represented something deeper than just profits. The real victory was having become an example for other small businesses and producers, showing that with passion and authenticity, it was possible to stand up to corporate giants and still win the hearts of people. Meanwhile, Hillcrest Farms began to suffer the consequences of its focus on merely copying and competing. Without building a genuine bond with consumers, they had failed to understand the true value of sustainable farming and connection to the community. Tom's journey, from humble farmer and target of humiliation to leader in the organic products sector, was just beginning. And now, he knew it wouldn't be easier. But he also knew he was on the right path, with a promising future for Hilltop Acres and for all the people who believed in what he was building. After the success at the event, Tom saw his farm being recognized as an example of resilience and innovation. He knew there was still a long way to go. But one thing was clear: his vision was becoming a solid and promising reality. However, a new challenge arose. The pressure to expand quickly was enormous. With growing interest in his products and investors wanting a share of the market, Tom found himself at a crossroads. Should he follow the path of large corporations, accelerate growth and increase production, or maintain the authenticity that had won him his customers? On a quiet night, sitting in the field with a glass of fresh orange juice that he himself helped produce, Tom reflected on what success meant to him. He had already won the biggest battle, showing that it's possible to be competitive and authentic at the same time. But he didn't want to lose sight of what made him unique. He knew that the quality of the products and respect for the environment were the foundation of everything he had achieved. It was then that a proposal of great magnitude came to him. A consortium of investors, eager to invest in Hilltop Acres' business model, offered Tom a partnership that would ensure rapid growth and financial stability for the farm for many years. However, this partnership came with the condition: the farm would need to be modernized, and production operations would largely be automated, which could compromise the artisanal touch Tom had built. He would have to decide: follow his intuition and maintain manual production, or accept the proposal that would bring a significant cash flow. Tom thought for days, consulting Anna, his wife, and the employees who had always stood by his side. They had built a solid relationship, and Tom knew their opinion would be crucial. Anna, always pragmatic, suggested he take the time to reflect, but also reminded him that throughout his journey, he had always chosen the more difficult but more rewarding path. True wealth is in what you preserve, not in what you acquire at the expense of your dream, she said. With a heavy heart, Tom made his decision. He turned down the proposal for rapid expansion. Instead, he chose to grow organically, preserving what made Hilltop Acres special. He knew this meant less money in the short term, but the long-term impact would be far more valuable. The authenticity of his farm was not something he was willing to sacrifice. Tom then focused on diversifying his products in a controlled, and sustainable manner. He invested more in digital marketing with an increasingly strong presence on social media, creating educational campaigns about the importance of responsible and sustainable farming. He also dedicated himself to new partnerships with local restaurants and organic markets, ensuring his brand was associated with quality and ethics. Over the following year, Hilltop Acres continued to thrive. Tom saw his customer base grow even more, with consumers increasingly committed to responsible consumption. And although investors had offered large sums of money, Tom now knew that what he had built was not just a farm, but a community, a movement. He was more than a farmer, he was a symbol of the change the world needed. The local town, where Hilltop Acres was located, began to flourish as well. Other small producers followed Tom's example, and a network of sustainable farms began to take shape. Hilltop Acres became a learning center for other farmers who came from all over the state to learn about sustainable farming practices and how to create businesses that respected nature without compromising profits. While Hillcrest Farms continued to focus on mass production without caring about the environmental or social impacts, Hilltop Acres became a symbol of resistance against standardization and excessive exploitation. People wanted to be part of something bigger, something real. And that was what Tom gave them: a chance to consume with purpose, to choose with conscience. On a sunny spring morning, as he watched the first sprouts of a new harvest opening in the field, Tom felt a sense of accomplishment. He had not only changed his own life, but had also contributed to transforming the way people thought about farming and consumption. And so, Hilltop Acres not only grew, it became a brand that represented the true essence of the countryside: hard work and dedication. In the end, Tom knew that his greatest achievement was not profit, but the community he had created. He had shown that, with courage and vision, an ordinary man could become a great leader, never forgetting what truly mattered: the connection with the land and the people.